Hello everyone, this is Horror Deadbeats, episode 2. Today's episode is going to be about the zombie holocaust, cannibal holocaust, cannibal ferox, and eaten alive. My two co-hosts today is John Gilling and Chris Ambriz. How you guys doing?
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, doing good, thank you.
No problem. These 4 films here, I seen Cannibal Holocaust, first of all, for the first time about maybe 10 months ago. I wasn't really, didn't know much about it, and, you know, it's like with me when it's just, I didn't know what it was about, and I got this movie in the mail called Cannibal Ferox, but it was actually changed to Make Them Die Slowly. I got it from Cheesy Flicks, you know, and I looked at it, and it looked so stupid. I don't know why, and I just put it in my drawer, and a year and a half later, I said, what the hell is this? Then I realized that it had an alternate title, and then I watched it, and, well, the rest is history. But the first film we're going to talk about is a little bit of a combination of zombies and cannibals, which I really enjoyed. This one. It was called Zombie Holocaust in 1980. And John, let's start with you. You've seen Zombie Holocaust. What is your opinion and feelings on this film?
It's, to be honest, I think it's the weakest of the 4, so I'm glad that we started with it. Not as brutal as the others either. The zombies were, I thought they were quite laughable, to be honest, with their masks. Well, it's the truth, not in Zombie Lake territory. I did enjoy watching it.
Right.
Don't think there was a great story to it, but it was a fun watch.
Now, what do you think about Dr. Butcher? That character.
Yeah, he's quite a character. You know, it reminds me of the film that we both watched this week, the Frankenstein's Army.
Yes.
You know, same type of character.
All right. Now, you mentioned about the zombies. Now, I'm going to let Chris go, and then I'll give my dibs on this. But Chris, now you've seen Zombie Holocaust. John mentioned that he didn't care much for. He said, well, he didn't say he didn't care much for. He said that zombies are a little bit laughable. Now, what is your opinion on Zombie Holocaust?
Well, going back to what we were discussing earlier, also with VHS, I remember picking up Dr. Butcher MD first and watching it. And it was really strange. You know, it's like this hodgepodge of cannibal film and zombie film, but what also kind of got me about the film was there's like so many direct lifts to the Fulci film, Zombie, including Ian McCall, I believe, was in the film, and another gentleman that was in the film as well. So there's like this, like, trying to capitalize on the success of Zombie within Cannibal or Zombie Holocaust.
Right.
And it didn't quite have this storyline. It was so strange. It was so the setup for this thing. Why this doctor was making zombies out of cannibals or something to that effect and everything. Right. And then certain parts of the movie where the zombies are really badly made, and then sometimes it goes over the top with the gore, which I was really kind of surprised too.
Right.
Especially with the propeller and the face thing, and a couple other, like where you had the scalped people and all that and stuff. So, I mean, but then there was this weird, on Dr. Butcher MD, there was like these weird bookends that were added to it for the American version.
Right.
I don't know if that had anything to do with the release or something like that, but then they changed the title, and I remember reading or watching something about it, how they tried to add something to it, and it just really didn't go anywhere or something. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, you know, when I saw this, now I'm a little bit, John, I think, John, you might be either my age or a little older, correct?
I certainly am.
Okay, I thought, but see, when I watched Zombie Holocaust, John mentioned about the zombies being a little bit funny, a little bit laughable, and then you mentioned about how bad the zombies look. Now, coming from my end of it, is the zombies in this film or I should say, in a lot of the Italian films, they do look pretty bad. But the weird part about me is I enjoy that badness. I mean, it's not as bad as Zombie Lake. Zombie Lake, it was the worst. I mean, but I still like.
Say that now, Bruce.
But I like that film too. I mean, it's just funny. I mean, it's not that Zombie Lake is great. I just like it because it's laughable. But when I say about the zombies, in American zombie films, like especially like Dawn of the Dead, it was not like they were coming out of the ground. They had that American look, the just died and come back to, whatever. But these here have them come out of the ground. They're really bad. But I like that. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because of me watching all these bad 50s and 60s science fiction films with my dad. I don't know where it comes from. But I like, I mean, you see a lot of these science fiction films, the aliens look so bad in the 50s and 60s. And it just kind of reminds me of, not that, but to see these zombies being so shitty and bad, but I love it. It's hard to explain. Zombie Holocaust was not a masterpiece by no means. Dr. Butcher, at times, I think they went a little overboard, but it wasn't enough that it ruined the film. It just, I don't know. I mean, the only part of the movie that really bugged me the most was the beginning. If I'm mistaken, with the poison darts. No, is that the wrong one? Is that Cannibal Reef?
Yeah, I think that was,
yeah. All right, I'm getting confused here. My bust. But but the jungle, the cannibals, the music. Again, the music has a lot of factors for me that makes the movie a little more creepier than what it actually is. I don't know how these Italians do it, but they got this freaking goofy music that is just phenomenal. That really, it's hard to explain, but Chris, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
It's definitely it's the atmosphere that they somehow managed to inject, even if the movie isn't all that spectacular. They really know how to set up an atmosphere.
Right.
That's the difference between an Italian film and an American film. American movies have a tendency to lower the atmosphere level and kind of give you the meat and potatoes, where the Italians are a little bit more about I guess like the gauzy visuals or something like that. It's just like they're trying to develop something, a look or a feel, more than develop the story as well. And the Dr. Butcher, I think I remember, because I have the DVD and it has both versions on there.
Right.
I think the trailer actually is better than the movie sometimes too. That guy, the grindhouse feel of it really kind of sold that movie to me. And then when I finally watched it, I was like, really, this is what it was,
Right.
That medical deviant, Dr. Butcher, and all these like really quick shots of all the best gore scenes and all the carnage and stuff like that. So
yeah, it is what it is. I mean, a lot of people that I've noticed like this film too. So I mean, I guess we're not the only ones. It's one of these nostalgic films that's pretty rare. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sure you can find it, but a lot of people don't know anything about it except for people who like zombies, or they do their homework and they look. And you can watch it on IMDb too, so that's pretty nifty to be able to watch it there. Of course, I think you have to pay for it, but anyways, let's go to the next film that it's called Eaten Alive in 1981, I think it was. And of course, we all know that Tobe Hooper had a movie called Eaten Alive in '77, which I was very disappointed with. I mean, having a high expectations from Texas Chainsaw Massacre and then watch that film, it just let me down because it didn't really go too much into detail. But
I've gone. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I thought that you said you liked Eaten Alive because I'm a fan of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But Eaten Alive, the problem with that, definitely one of the biggest problems, is the set. It's all red, and it just looks so badly filmed. It just looks like it's on a cheap set. They've got a bit of a lake there or a bit of a river there or what have you, and it's so poor after Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Well, that's what I mean.
It's also something they don't really like talking much about either, because I remember talking to Kim Hinkle about it, and they just kind of did it, you know.
Right.
It wasn't one of their, I guess it wasn't really something that they were, I guess, all the way with on that one.
Right.
Because it kind of feels like that. Eaten Alive's got a very strange feel to it.
It does. I mean, I didn't hate it. I mean, I think I gave it maybe either 5.5 or 6. I can't remember what it was. I saw it a couple weeks ago for the first time. But let's get into the another alternate title with the Eaten Alive, the Italian cannibal film. That wow. I'm going to go to John, because we'll go to John again first. John, when you watched Eaten Alive, it's a slightly different cannibal film, because there's more of a story in there besides the cannibals. But what was your take on Eaten Alive?
I really, really did enjoy it, and I wanted to bring up about these films, because, as you know, I've been watching all of them this week. And I think I might have mentioned to you, I did, when we was talking, and I said, the question that I ask is, one, who would make this type of film, and two, who would want to watch it? You know, what would you get out of it? But then I thought, well, I've watched them and I've enjoyed it, so do you understand what I mean? It's a strange situation with these films, but I really, really did enjoy it, and who was it? Umberto Lindsay, the main actress, the Swedish actress, is really pretty, and it had that same actor in it again.
Yep.
From Cannibal, of course, Robert Kerman.
Yep.
I thought he was really good. Jonas was really, really, you know, a really evil person, and it also told the story, didn't it, of one of those that we read about. Well, the helicopters are coming in, so this is what we're going to do. We're all going to kill ourselves now.
Yes, and I'm going to bring that up too when it's my turn. But you're exactly right. I mean, this movie was nothing like Cannibal Ferox and Cannibal Holocaust.
No.
But there's a scene with the cannibals that just crazy. But I'll let Chris go ahead. You saw Eaten Alive. What was your first opinion on the film when you first started watching it?
I guess the thing that kind of struck me about it was the level of seriousness to it. I guess because I think the movie that really kind of started this whole cannibal craze was Man from Deep River, even though it wasn't really about cannibals, but they had a cannibal scene.
Right. And
that was kind of what kind of led into this cannibal craze. And I believe this is Umberto Lenzi's, right? Eaten Alive?
Yeah.
Yeah. There was just something to it that, you know, the atmosphere, the violence, everything that they somehow managed to pull off in that film, and it has such an impact, and it's not nearly as how do I use the word, not nearly as exploitive as Ferox and Holocaust.
Not as disturbing,
but it's definitely much more of a straight film.
Right. Right. And have you noticed that the music that's in Eaten Alive is identical to the same music that's in Cannibal Ferox?
Yeah.
I did not, and I've watched them both this week.
Yeah, and it's that one music they use, and I kid you not, if I even thought about using that music as a freaking ringtone.
Did you find the music, because have you seen the Condomani films, the Riz Orlani for Cannibal Holocaust? It's got a very strange feel to it. So
yeah.
Considering what the subject matter is, but if you watch those shockumentaries,
yeah,
he did the soundtrack for those too, and it had a very similar tone that was almost like you could, you know, intermix them in a way.
Yeah,
and that's just interesting to me.
Yeah, but now
I'll tell you what,
go ahead.
I'll tell you what I do like, especially in this film, but I think you find in all of them, is that we're out in the jungle or the Amazon, wherever it is, and there's some really, really serious things that are going on. Then we're going to go back to a shot of New York. So we see New York, and all of a sudden we get the disco music kicking in.
Yeah, we knew where we're at.
just to make sure we know we're back in New York. You know, we're going to throw in a bit of disco.
Yeah.
That's not saying anything against the film, but.
Well, no, you know. Now I'm going to ask you both. I'm going to ask John first. John, the scene finally with the cannibals at the end of the film, when they finally were able to decide to kill and eat, and what was your feelings? Not with the guy that was screwing the girl that you noticed, that you knew that you're going to see his head laying down on the ground, but the scene afterwards when they had that girl down on the ground. Did you have sympathy for that girl?
I've got to be honest and say yes.
Okay, yeah. Now, the torture scene that you saw there. Now, this is I shouldn't say torture. I guess it is, but it's not like the torture films today. But when
the hook.
No, that was Cannibal Ferox.
Oh, that's Ferox. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry. The one where they took the knife down her breast and through her nipple.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That made me so squeamish.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, God.
What did the effects for that film, out of curiosity? Did anybody look into that?
No, I did not.
I remember them being very well pulled off.
Yes. But, now my opinion on this film is, when I first started watching it, I was kind of like, wow, I mean, what is this about? I mean, I knew it was about cannibals. I knew they were in the Amazon. Then you seen this cult leader, which, believe it or not, this might be very similar to the nut jobs that we had in the past that had these cults in the buildings and stuff. So, I mean, this movie wasn't too far-fetched as far as the cult in the middle of the jungle. But my question is, how come the cannibals never tried to attack that village? Are they peaceful? Are they peaceful people until they're provoked? Is that basically?
That could be it.
I think it was also a sign of power. If they had, if we mess with you, we'll eat you and stuff like that. So I guess they kind of kept each other in check. If I'm not mistaken. I remember there was an interview where he kind of discussed that a little bit too.
Well, the next two films, both of those films are basically revenge films for the cannibals. But final thoughts?
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, definitely Eaten Alive has this kind of like not documentary feel, but like definitely, more of a less exploitive revenge film and more of just a straightforward film, whereas the next two that we're going to talk about are definitely, very pointed.
Right. Now, one problem I had with Eaten Alive, I didn't mention in my review because it's really no big issue, but I'm going to mention it now. The end scene with the helicopter and the guy running and the cannibals are behind him. You trying to tell me that they could not get him? I mean, they have spears, correct? That's the only thing that. I mean, it's a movie. I understand that, but that's one thing that I think they kind of messed up on, because there had to been
It seemed rushed.
Yes, it seemed like. Wait a minute. He's running. He's going real slow. The one's like an arm length behind him. They could have easily threw a spear. You know what I mean? Because cannibals are big on spears, and I'll get into that because I did some research on these cannibals, of all the cannibal tribes that still exist in the Amazon, and I found out what's the most feared tribe and what they do. And if you're interested in hearing about it, it fascinates me. But I'll let you know if you're interested at the end of the show about these cannibals. But let's go to Cannibal Ferox. Now, I heard, again, I got this movie, but it was called Make Them Die Slowly. I didn't realize it was the same film, because when you get films from TC Flicks, you usually don't get them in cases. They're in sleeves. So I really didn't know anything about this. I just threw it in my drawer. I figured it's some stupid. And then when I watched the one trailer did no justice for this film whatsoever. I think there's two of them. I think it's down now, but it was horrible. I thought it was a joke, a comedy, just the way it was put out there. And then after I watched Cannibal Holocaust, and then a little bit later I started doing some search on YouTube, ones other than the ones I had on VHS, other cannibal films. There's a bunch of them, but some are pretty. That one about that woman that got kidnapped by these Amazon tribe, and she's falling in love with the one. It's a Jane something story.
Didn't they like paint her gold or something like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
But anyways, John, I had you watch Cannibal Ferox, and I know your feelings on Holocaust, which we'll get into your feelings because you told me on Facebook. When you watched Cannibal Ferox, what was your first intuition or what you're seeing? And then tell people what you thought the more you got into the movie.
I wish I'd have watched this before Cannibal Holocaust, to be honest. I thought that would be the really strong film, but it was definitely this one. And we spoke about censorship before, who should have the right, who shouldn't have the right. I'm so surprised that this movie was ever released, and going quite a bit into it, the bit that I really honestly found too much was the killing of the turtle, cutting off his legs and cutting off his head. I just thought that was obscene.
Okay. Yes, that's
the whole film was just the further you got into it, and when they're putting the hooks into that woman's breast and lifting her up, and I think I put my review up of it yesterday. The only tender moment was when her friend, who's also tied up, is like praying to God and say that please let her die quickly and please let me die quickly.
Right.
And the villain of the piece, I can't remember his name, but even with him, he'd chopped off someone else's appendage, but even when it was his turn, you really didn't want to see it happen. And seeing it happen, I didn't think that you would see it. I mean, they could just stick their arm out and pull it back and chop, and you would, you would know what's been done, but to show you. And again, as I already said to you, with Cannibal Holocaust, these films are so realistic.
I know.
There's so many, and I'm thinking, is this real? Is this not real? And obviously, why do they always seem to? They've got to show that they're going to kill. I presume it's a baby crocodile, which is quite a small one. I noticed that in these films.
Yeah.
Got to think maybe. I'm ignorant, and maybe that is what some of these people do. Do you understand what I mean? So it would be like natural to them. So
yes.
I'm sorry if I'm going on a bit. But
No. I want you to, because I know it bothered you. Now let me ask you a question, John. What if this was a snuff film? What if this was a real film? How would you feel about the people that got killed compared to your thoughts about the animals being killed? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, if it was a snuff film, I wouldn't watch it because.
Well, wait a minute, John. You watched it though. I mean,
I questioned it.
Exactly. That's what I mean. You said it looks like it's real.
They do. Yeah, especially with Cannibal Holocaust.
Well, we'll get into that one, yeah.
Yeah. But a brutal film, and I want to ask you, Gruesome, and you, Chris, why, how do we feel about we're part of this, we're indulging in this, we know, do you understand what I mean? We know that these films are really near the knuckle. This is not just we're seeing, actors that we know, or maybe in an independent film, but this is really as close to the knuckle. How do you feel about watching it?
Go ahead, Chris, you answer it first.
The thing about these movies, and I was just thinking about it too, it's just that it's the same director but completely different feel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this one is definitely the exploitive revenge, nasty, murdering kind of film, you know, and it's very pointed that it's trying to make some sort of social commentary. And but it's just all kind of depending on how you look at it, right?
Right.
And I don't know. There's some parts of I remember buying this movie when it was on VHS, and it came with a Band-Aid, you know, for Cannibal Survival Kit and stuff.
Yeah,
and I thought it was kind of a neat little touch to it. But when I watched it, I just remember thinking, I was like, man, this movie's way extreme. But you know, I watched it, and you know, I felt bad for the animals, you know. But you know, it's a tough movie to peg, you know, and then the violence against the people is even worse. So,
right.
I mean, you kind of approach it any which way you will, you know.
Okay, John, you asked me this question. Now, you know, I feel dirty liking this film, because it's so, I can't say creepy, it's disturbing. But one thing I will say about this film, you have a situation to where you have that one guy who is a complete fucking asshole, and what he was doing, he was there for a reason, to rip off the natives or whatever it was, with the fucking jewels and shit. But you know what? When he took upon himself, he said, they've been fighting with that turtle all day. So he goes down to that woman, and while the old people, cannibals, are just sitting there watching, because in their customs they don't do nothing. It's the young ones you got to worry about. And then he takes it upon himself to kill this girl. Now, I've gone from, okay, the guy is an asshole. Now he's a complete jackass douchebag for killing this girl. Now, I would love to see this guy get you know, eaten. That's just my perspective on that. I mean, the guy was... Same goes for Holocaust. We'll get into that too. But with this film, there's so many aspects of this film that just creeped me out, disturbed me, was the turtle. The snake.
They're cutting the head off and everything. And
the back legs kicking. It just... Oh, God. I can't get that picture out of my head. It's so fucking weird, because the movie's based on people getting eaten by these cannibals, but yet we're so focused on the animals because the animals were actually killed in the film, and obviously, but it did. You know, this movie didn't quite affect me as bad as Cannibal Holocaust did when I watched it.
What do you think? Okay, number one, I'm just gonna, if you draw the comparison between Eaten Alive and Ferox, do you feel like he was trying to push it even further?
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, and then the commentary. I mean, and then if you look at you know, what they did to the animals, and then look what they did to the people. You know, the castration, the hooks. I mean, it's very, you know, wow. You know, very gruesome. You know, so I mean, it's just like you're taking it and you're taking it even further.
Yeah. And the part that I thought was, I found myself cheering it on, it's fucking horrible, was when the guy got his head cut off like a fucking monkey on that table. I mean,
yeah.
It's like, you son of a bitch.
The table's just cut enough for the top of the head, and that's it. And then,
I mean, bad enough he got his pee-pee chopped, but but you know, that scene alone, I'm thinking, you know, you fucker, you deserve it. After what you did to that girl, you deserve it. And it sounds...
Wasn't he the Italian whip destruction or something like that?
Yeah.
Giovanni Lamberto or DC or something like that. He's like, in every movie you see him, he's getting something horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, but you know, like I said, this movie here, I put it in top. Eaten Alive is... Zombie Holocaust is 4, Eaten Alive is 3, and this one is number 2 as far as disturbing. and let's just go ahead and get this out because John is just like really ready to let loose on this one. Poor John. I mentioned to him, have you seen Cannibal Holocaust? And he said, no. I said, well, it's on YouTube. If you want to watch it, you better watch it soon, because who knows, it might be getting taken down. And he watched Cannibal Holocaust, and he didn't respond to me. You know, that I knew he watched it, but he didn't write to me. He didn't say anything to me. So I figured either he didn't like it, he's probably in bed in the fetal position, worked up and scared and upset and disturbed and can't work for a week. But then he finally came out of the woodwork. John, Cannibal Holocaust is the first, in my opinion, the first found footage film that started this craze now. Of course, it took a long time for it to even create that buzz after the one in 99. But Cannibal Holocaust is a very tricky film. The filmmaker made everyone to believe that it's real. He had a website that said that the 3 people that were there are still missing after all these years. Well, it's still up. I mean, back then it caused a lot of controversy, which I'll get into more detail on that from what I read and stuff. But John, when you watched Cannibal Holocaust, what did you first think that you were watching, and then realizing that it's more than what it was?
I think it's just such a disturbing film. It really is. Maybe in a different way to Cannibal for Row. It has got all the style of a documentary, and I've got to be honest, I've said before how much I like zombie movies, but and you know, in a lot of them you're going along the same way, but not in the way that this did, and the brutality of it. The bit that really got me was the girl on the pole. That I just thought was absolutely horrifying, and it just looked so real to me that I honestly had to go back a couple of times and look. And part of me was saying, well, it can't be real because it's a movie, but then at the same time I'm thinking, well, I'm seeing all this other slaughter. You know, how far would they have gone? Could they have gone in making this movie? Just totally brutal. And again, in the same, I don't want to repeat myself again, but even why anybody would want to come up with the idea of, well, we'll make this movie and we're going to make it as brutal as we can. And how it got released, I honestly don't know.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that part about the woman in the pole. That was the main scene that was being watched by the courts to verify if this movie is real or not real, because they actually thought that he made this to be a snuff film, and all the actors, he had them killed. And it's funny that you brought that up, because that's exactly what they used to find out if this film is real. Now, I'll bring it up now, Chris, and I'll let you go. From what I found out is he got arrested, was facing life in prison, because when the actors made this film, they signed contracts that they cannot talk to the media for a year. They got to go into hiding. So he knew what he was doing. He put himself in a bad situation pretty quickly, because no one's seen these actors since this movie was made. So they actually thought that these actors were actually killed. And I must admit something to you guys right now. When I watched this film, I 94% thought this thing was real because of how it was made. And then afterwards I went on the website, and then I went to Wikipedia, and then I found out the real truth. But that being said, does not make me stupid at all. The movie was made so real looking, so disturbing.
I believed it as well, Bruce, then. I honestly did.
You know, and there's nothing wrong with admitting that, because, you know. But anyways, Chris, Obviously, you've seen it. What was your opinion on it when you first started watching it? Then when it got to the end, especially the scene with the guy at the, well, I'll wait my turn, but what was when you saw that turtle getting pulled out of the water and you seen his head getting cut off and you seen his back legs just a-kicking, I mean, that was tip of the ice. That was pretty much before the other violence happened.
Yeah.
But at that moment, now my first thoughts when I saw that was, oh, that's just the way that people are in Amazon, which they probably are.
It was almost like a Trials of Life type tape.
Yes.
Watching. Yeah.
So then, now, what was your opinion on that, and then your whole thoughts on the movie? Period.
Oh, it's just terrible. It's exploitation. It's definitely trying to push buttons. It's definitely what it was designed for.
And it
To
definitely
get
did.
you kind of unnerved. It's to add to that feeling that you're not watching something safe. It's essentially what it was designed for.
Yeah. Yep. So you didn't care much for it, or you just?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's necessary, but I mean, the director, for whatever reason, decided to take that movie into that territory and, cause quite a stir, and I guess for better or worse, it generated the box office and the notoriety that they were looking for.
Okay, now let me ask you a question. You said that this movie's not necessary. So what is your opinion on Hostel?
No, I didn't think the violence against the turtle was necessary. I mean...
Oh, yeah, that part. I understand that part. But as far as pushing the envelope, as far as other than the animals, that was the main problem. After they couldn't get him for murdering his actors, when they realized that it was fake, then they decided to focus their anger on the cruelty of the animals. 7 animals was killed, but 6 of them
got banned.
But 6 of them was on screen, but the 7th one was an accident or whatever that they killed him. But I've done so much homework on this movie because I just wanted to find out why would someone make this, what is going, and I'm just like that when it comes to.
Have you seen Giotto's other films? Have you seen like The Edge of the Park, House on the Edge of the Park, or
not yet,
Concord 70, The Concord Affair, or any of the other films he's
not
made?
yet, but I'm in a process.
He's actually quite an accomplished filmmaker. He knows how to make a movie. This movie in particular is completely opposed to anything he's done before. Otherwise, you'd watch his movies and you think you're pretty much watching, standard movie fare. And this film, in comparison to Lenzi, and I remember these guys were kind of at each other for a while. Lenzi did this, I'm going to do it better. I'm going to make it more. You thought you were watching something, I'll show you something. That kind of attitude. Because I mean, these guys were trying to make a movie. They were trying to sell a movie too back in the day. But Holocaust became the gold standard, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you want your gold standard of depravity within the cannibal subgenre in Italy. This is the film. This is the movie that's going to make, Make Him Die Slowly, whatever. Because when you watch Make Him Die Slowly, you're still watching a film.
Right.
You get that impression that you're just watching a movie, no matter how over the top it is.
Right.
It still has that movie feel. Giotto, with this POV found footage type of film that he made, he was definitely showing a dark side to humanity. He was showing a dark side to this genre. He wanted to make the movie that would probably, end it all at that point, and then obviously he didn't get him into a bit of trouble because it took him like 2 years before he even got House at the Edge of the Park. But you can't deny the impact the film has. It's like you're watching somebody's bad, dirty film that went out with a 16mm and just went and shot a bunch of random stuff.
Right.
You're getting that impression watching this film. I had not seen it. I saw all the other cannibal films throughout the 90s and could not get one damn copy of Holocaust until they finally put it out on DVD like about 7 years ago.
Yep.
And I finally got a copy of it, went up to Austin, hung out with some friends, and was like, man, we got to see this movie. This is the gold one. This is the one that everybody talks about. And we watched it. And afterwards, my friends are all, why did you make us watch this? it was like, you know, and they were pretty, you know, staunch horror fans, but they had never seen anything like that before, or probably since, you know.
Well, have you seen?
But,
I did see another film that he did. It was out in '85 called Cut and Run.
Cut and Run, yeah.
I watched that last
Feels
week
like
with
a movie.
Michael Berryman, and that's another
Yeah.
jungle. That's another jungle natives movie, but it's not no cannibals. It was more like a drug.
Yeah, like a thriller.
Yeah.
Yeah, and most of his movies are action films.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So-
but he very rarely made straight horror films. But the even House at the Edge of Park, which David Hess is in it, awesome
Yeah.
film, loved it. Great revenge film too. But yeah, and then there's that theme. You know, these guys are bad. You're watching these movies; these guys aren't good. So there really isn't anybody to root for. You're almost rooting for the cannibals in a way. You know, because they go in there and they mess up their stuff. You know, and
Well-
you're getting that like, man, why are they doing this kind
That's
of
exactly-
attitude with the film?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to tell you. I was siding for the cannibals in this film because
Yeah.
of all the shit that they did to these people, you know. And I mentioned earlier about the cannibals just reacting to what it's being done to them. Now, it's a fine line between you're an idiot to you're just crazy. Because why would you side with the cannibals? Well, let's see. You invaded their area. You raped one of their girls. What do you think is going to happen? I mean, it just... There's so many parts of this movie that... The one that really, really, really got me the most was the part where the guy shoots the one guy, and the cannibals come and take this dude, and they, right in camera... I don't know how the hell they did it, because it did in Cannibal for Rocks 2, is how the hell did they make it look so real when they cut his dick off? Or at least half of it. How
it's prosthetics.
how did they pull
I mean,
it? Right. It's amazing how they pulled that off.
They have managed to, I guess, with sleight of hand and the prosthetics, because I know there was an effects person that worked on that film, and they did a good job. I mean, they strove for the realism.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this movie seemed more real to me than Ferox. Ferox was just definitely a mean film, but this one was like I said again, it's just this, you know, like you're watching somebody's bad 16 millimeter reel, you know, that they went out and messed with these people or just being jerks and snorting coke and bothering people and doing bad stuff, and then it just came and got them.
Right.
It took them, you know, and I really don't, you know, and it's kind of hard to say what is the movie saying to you, you know, as an audience. You know, it's like, what are we trying to tell the audience? I mean, that people have a dark side, that, you know, cannibals, you know, when provoked will do this to you, you know, or, you know, all the, you know, is it retribution for all the bad that they did to these other animals? You know, is it, it doesn't really come very clear. Like, there's almost not a serious straight point to the film other than that people are bad.
Right. Now, before I end this, I'll
point on the cannibals themselves, like as far as like what they're about, who, you know, their inner workings. You can always kind of see them on a very topical scale.
Yeah.
You know, and that is kind of what I guess it kind of gives them the same, in a way, I guess, a parallel to zombies in a sense of that fear of being devoured. That's the power of the cannibals themselves. It's like, you know, we fear being devoured by something, and they represent that kind of fear of being devoured by something, ingested, you know, destroyed, you know, by ourselves. And that's what makes these films scary in their own right, is they're these primitive people that will devour you, you know, because you're something different in their environment.
Yeah. Well, I think it was Cannibal. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't know, it's just, I'm kind of curious, because we haven't had really a cannibal anything for, 30 years now? I mean, there hasn't been any notable cannibal films that created since then.
Right.
And then here we go with, you just mentioned him earlier, Eli Roth, Hostel. He's doing The Green Inferno.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of curious what he's going to bring to the table at this point.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm not a real fan of Eli Roth. I might check it out. I don't know if I will or not. It all depends on who he has in it. I mean, if he goes too high end on it, then I have no interest because it's just going to be a baby-fied garbage fest. Like the Fright Night remake, and these movies are more top dollar, and they're just terrible.
Yeah, like it's too polished, or
yeah.
Because I guess that's also the power of these films too. Is like they can't get too safe looking or too clean or too. I think there was actually some point where they said like how real the cannibals appeared on film, whether they were just extras in mud and grease paint, or they actually looked like Aborigines or something like that too.
Well, from what
I think that's a lot of what happened with some of these films. Is like the quality of them was dependent on who was actually making the film and trying to present the tribe.
Well, that actually was a real tribe in Cannibal Holocaust. They were working with.
They actually sold it really well, didn't they?
Yeah, well, from reading that article about that, they weren't actors. That was an actual tribe that actually worked with them in that movie. I was shocked by that, but that was an actual tribe, so they already knew how the torture scenes that you've seen, that is done in their tribes as far as cutting the you-know-what off, because if a guy
does something,
commits adultery or something, or whatever, that's what. Because if you remember in Cannibal Ferox, when that one native helped them people escape, you see what happened. You see what happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing he did is he poured it down and chopped. That must be a ritual or something, because that seems very common in these movies. It's always chop at the schwank. I don't know if that was.
I don't imagine that they go in there kind of blind trying to make a cannibal film. I'm pretty sure they actually went in there and tried to at least get some of it right, or do some of their homework for it.
But John, you're quiet. Are you still shook up? You got a blanket on yet? Are you all right?
No, it's interesting listening to you talk. I just think that's something that you don't do. You can kill a guy, you can torture him, but you don't touch his appendage. That's out of bounds.
Yeah.
So
these movies are I knew I wanted to do this show because I wanted John to express, because I know it shook him up, and that's one of the reasons why I decided that I had a decent day that I could get the show on tonight, because I just wanted to see John just explain what bothered him, because I knew he watched it most recently, so it was still fresh, and that's why I wanted to do this show, to let people who have not seen it, to give them an option if they want to see it, and more than likely they're going to watch it, but they might not like what they're going to see.
I own it, and I've only watched it once since then.
Yeah, well,
it's more of a collector's thing than anything else.
Right. I mean, I can't watch it again because I won't have this. I hate saying this, but if I watch it again, I won't have the same effect, because now I know.
I should probably watch it now because I have a much better system than I did 7-8 years ago.
Well, true for you.
I literally have not cracked it since then. It's just not a favorite movie of mine.
Was that John?
No, can I ask then, are we agreeing that we're saying that we enjoyed these films? I
did, and I feel dirty saying that, but I do.
No, I did. That's what I was saying to you. It comes to my mind, who would make it, who would watch it, who would enjoy it, and then I'm thinking, I watched them, and I'll be honest and say, there are parts that are hard to deal with, but I did enjoy them.
But you know what's funny, Chris and John? If this Cannibal Holocaust was never done and it's made now, would it have the same effect as it did back in 1980?
That was one of the questions I wanted to ask you, Gruesome. They couldn't make these now, could they? Surely they wouldn't get... get these through the censor.
That's why I brought up Eli Roth. Can you do it now? Is it a product of that era, and would it only work then, or is it possible to do something like that now?
Right. But one thing I will say, that I watched that Bloody Moon. Remember, Chris, we talked about that? Do you see what happened in Bloody Moon with that snake?
Yeah.
Same aspect. It's just, I don't know what it is. no stink was being made about that, but it seems like in the cultures of those films back in that era, it was no holds bar. What they did in films, Americans would not even attempt to do. And I think that's one of the reasons why I really grasp towards these films. I mean, Nightmare City, anything of that nature, it's just so much, to me, more advanced in that era than American films was. I mean, I like American films too, obviously, but
yeah,
it's just
but
fascinating.
You're not going to see somebody take as many chances,
right,
as they do,
right,
good or bad.
Right.
Everything's real safe and corporate here.
Right, exactly. So, well,
these guys are more independent.
Yeah, it's just fascinating. I mean, I'm still finding some other stuff that.
Think about it. How would you pitch doing a cannibal film now? Yeah, I mean, you can't. I mean, it would be like, well, give me like $2 million. I'm going to go down to the Amazon and film a really violent, gory cannibal film with a bunch of ugly people, and I don't think that would sell very well in terms of raising money. It'd almost be I don't know.
Well, I know the director of Cannibal Holocaust. I can't remember his name, Galami or however it is. He had plans on making a new film in 2012 called Cannibals. But the problem is, him and the producers could not come in agreement, and he said to hell with it. I would have loved to see him pull it today. See, he did say in an interview, he said he wanted to make another Cannibal movie now, but he didn't know if Americans could accept it. Well, I
think the success of that movie was really overseas, wasn't it? It wasn't necessarily here.
No, but that what he was wondering. He wanted it to be. He just wasn't sure. He was in Hostel. He made a cameo in Hostel, and after he's seen Hostel, he said, "Maybe I can do a cannibal movie now. Maybe the Americans would be able to accept it." And then he was going forward with it, and something happened financially that it did not get done. So that was kind of disappointed.
Yeah, I think it really it comes down to financing. It's like, man, you can make a jillion zombie films. Everybody wants to in on that pie, but I mean, you can't really go too far outside of that. You probably have better luck making a remake of Dr. Butcher MD because they had zombies in it versus the straight cannibal film.
Right.
Like that, and I am kind of curious to see what Eli Roth pulls off in terms of a cannibal film, quote unquote, and see if it does translate now, to the audience. If we're going to pick up on it, if it's going to be like something big in Europe and Asia, but not necessarily in the United States, or that kind of thing. It is going to be kind of interesting to see where he goes with it.
Or is it going to be?
That would be the first cannibal film I've heard of in years.
Or is it going to be candy coated?
Or is it going to be Hostel 3? Or is it going to be what was the other one he's popular for? Cabin Fever. I don't know, but I don't know. Like I said, me personally, I think they're hard films to like watch on a regular basis. I don't find myself watching Make Them Die Slowly or Cannibal Holocaust, or I'll probably watch Cannibal Apocalypse more often too, because I just like the action elements of that film better. Those films are they're hard to like just recreationally watch. I mean, it's almost like you watch them on a dare.
Yeah. What my opinion is, once I watch them once, that's it. There is no more reventuring, because I'm a weirdo. I'll let you guys go, but my final message is, like I said before, when I watch something that disturbing, it affects me once. I can't go back and watch it again and have the same effect.
You can't unscramble eggs.
So that's my whole philosophy on Cannibal Ferox and Cannibal Holocaust. I liked them. I guess I'm a sicko for liking them, but I would never watch them again. Maybe 10 years from now, maybe if I forget something about it.
I was thinking of actually, checking out Cannibal Holocaust again, because I haven't seen it since I bought it. Right. That was years ago.
Because I've seen so many movies that, certain ones stick with me, other ones doesn't, and but that's it. So listeners, if you haven't seen these films, I don't want to be a burden of copyright infringement, but they are on YouTube. Watch them there. I mean, they've been there forever, so I don't know what the deal with that is. It's hard to explain how that keeps staying on there.
I didn't even realize they were on YouTube. I mean, like I said, I haven't seen Fearox since I bought it too, and that's probably even been longer. Yeah, but I remember watching it once, and I was like, it's all right, whatever. I wouldn't watch it again. You know, it's not necessarily my favorite either. I have Dr. Butcher MD. I have Cannibal Holocaust and Fearox. I don't have Eaten Alive, but I don't think I'd ever watch it more than once anyways. I think I rented it.
Right. Well, the reason why I know is because I go in and find the trailers, and I type in Cannibal Holocaust, and boom. I mean,
yeah.
That's how I find them. Not intentionally, but they just pop up there. But, all right. Well, Chris, John, thanks for coming on. Thanks
for having us on.
No problem. I think we got some good information, and I wanted a reaction out of John because, you know, the show we had yesterday, he was a little down because a lot of films he didn't see, but I wanted to really see what John's emotions was from his film, and I knew the main problem that he had was the animals, like everybody else, and of course other things with the woman in the pole. That didn't seem to bother me.
That was a simple effect too. She was just sitting on a stool, from what I read,
on a bicycle seat.
Put that foam thing in her mouth, and they painted it up. It wasn't even anything hard.
Right, bicycle seat she was sitting on. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But
the effects are just very basic, but very simple.
And it was very simple, but because it was shot as a found footage film, it was easy to pull off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It made it more believable.
It was a sleight of hand.
If they would have made that film like a regular movie, it would not have the same effect.
No, I don't think so at all. I think it would be terrible, actually.
You're right. It probably would have been. Exactly.
Very impressive.
Well, John, anything that you want to add or bring up that anything at all before we go?
Yeah, anybody that does watch them, my advice would be have a nice cold glass of water ready. That's what I did.
Nah.
And some soap too. You wash that dirt off.
Definitely not mass appeal.
No. So, and you, Chris?
As far as watching them?
Yeah. Any final things you want to say to the people who are listening?
Just that, if you're going to watch them, be prepared. You're not going to be watching cookie cutter 80s horror, cookie cutter now horror. It's definitely a league of its own, and it definitely has a power that's hard to put into words, really.
Yeah. Well, my message is, when you watch this movie, like John says, have some water. It's going to be so shocking what you're seeing. If you're an animal lover, no matter what animal's in here, just prepare yourself. And if you're a hunter,
if you're an animal lover, I wouldn't even watch it. I would be like, don't even watch it.
Yeah, but if you're a hunter, probably different. I mean, you might not.
Yeah, if you're a bloodthirsty hunter, or
it'll probably won't affect you. And dudes, don't be surprised if you don't grab your crotch when that scene comes up, because it makes you grab it.
Yeah, it's a winter.
All right, guys, thank you very much for coming on. Great show.
Thank you.
And we will do this again sometime in the future. So you guys take care and have a great night.
And you, Chris. And you, Chris.
Take care.
Good night, John.
See you later.
We'll
Bye.
see you. Bye.
Bye.
See you, Chris.